Formula 1 saw a tricky race at Imola for the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix, with the weather conditions playing a huge part all weekend long. Heading into the weekend, Charles Leclerc held a convincing lead in the Drivers Championship Standings with a 34-point lead over nearest rival George Russell. However, things were set to change. Friday's sessions were washed out with plenty of rain, with drivers forced to push as hard as they can in the tricky and treacherous conditions to qualify as strong as they can to improve their chances during the sprint race, with Max Verstappen the fastest driver. Max Verstappen carried the form of Friday over into the sprint race on Saturday, with the dominant Red Bull driver beating title rival Charles Leclerc in second place, with his teammate Sergio Perez making a step from P7 on the grid to P3 to round off the sprint race podium. Whilst this was going on, there were some problems that were continuing to burn in the Mercedes camp, with 8-time champion Lewis Hamilton qualifying in P13 and finishing the sprint race in P14. His teammate George Russell qualifying in a similar low position of P11 and finishing the sprint in the same position. The Mercedes' poor qualifying results on Friday saw them break a Q3 streak that has been running since the 2012 Japanese Grand Prix, where we've seen a Mercedes in Q3 for every race since. This is another woe for the team, who have struggled tremendously since the regulation changes heading into 2022. These poor results have caused a stir with Lewis Hamilton, who admitted for the first time that Mercedes are not in the hunt to fight for the F1 World Championship this year. However, he has defended Mercedes against criticism that they might be in different territory this year, saying that the team has now been through many bad years. Most of the people I'm working with have been here 20 years. It wasn't the greatest of years in 2013, but we've had great years since then. We stick together and trying to motivate everyone. This is a situation that we are faced with. Everyone has got their heads down and working as hard as they can. We are obviously not fighting for the championship, but we are fighting to understand the car, improve and progress through the year. That's all we can hope for right now. As expected, these comments have caused people to wonder if Lewis might be looking for a seat elsewhere. He was quick to shut these claims down, saying, "I've seen a couple of comments from certain individuals that I remember growing up respecting when I was younger. Ultimately, their comments are silly and a bunch of nonsense, all in the aim of getting headlines to keep themselves relevant. I've been with Mercedes since I was 13. We've had amazing times together. We've ridden the highs and lows together. I'm 100% committed to this team. There's nowhere else that I want to be. Just because we've hit a rough patch, it's not in my DNA to back out. We're still world champions and we can fix this. It's just going to take longer. It's going to be a painful year. I think ultimately this is going to be a painful year that we're going to have to ride out together, with belief that we can rectify it at some point. Maybe through the year, or even a worst case scenario, next year." Lewis did go on to say that the 2022 car has got potential, and it looks like his teammate is proving this. George Russell has been a standout driver in the Mercedes camp so far, with a podium in Australia and a valiant race to finish in P4 overall from P11 on the grid in the Grand Prix at Imola, whilst Lewis Hamilton finished in a disappointing P13. Of course, this is slightly expected from George, who has a history of outperforming his car, as we saw in the last 3 years at Williams. Moving back into the race, Max Verstappen got an outstanding start from P1, muscled his way around the front to retain this, heading out of the first chicane ahead of his teammate Sergio Perez. For Charles Leclerc, he didn't get so lucky and was pushed back to P4 behind Lando Norris. Ferrari's luck at the chicane went from bad to worse, as Carlos Sainz found himself getting tangled with the McLaren of Daniel Ricciardo and getting beached in the gravel trap, ending his race at the first corner, suffering 2 DNFs in 2 consecutive races. From here, Red Bull would dominate, with second place Sergio Perez holding back any advances from Charles Leclerc, who was able to dispose of Lando Norris early on into the race, at Red Bull eventually going on to take a strong 1-2 finish. Charles Leclerc looked set to take a P3 finish after a second pit stop for Max, Sergio and Leclerc for soft compounds. However, he was pushing harder for second place, and this pushing forced him and his car over the limit, and he spun out of the third place into a wall, damaging his car and front wing in the process, allowing Lando Norris to pass him. Leclerc opted to pit once again to fix his front wing, which was damaged, Charles eventually placing in P6 and Lando Norris rounding off the podium in third place. Next time we go out to Miami, which is a brand new circuit to the calendar. Red Bull are looking incredibly strong, and we can expect them to put in a good shift to make up ground to Leclerc and Ferrari in their respective Drivers and Constructors Championships. We absolutely cannot discount Ferrari though, who will be aiming to try and recoup their losses after a less than expected weekend in Imola. If you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe and hit that bell icon and you'll never miss a future upload.